Ladies and gentlemen, this interview is brought to you by Burn Up Coaching and the 21-Day Challenge. And if you're at a place where you're lacking clarity, you're just not fulfilled, you're not feeling like you're living your purpose, or not operating at a level 10 excitement and energy and fulfillment in your life, and you want to get to the place where you're living your purpose, where every day you wake up and you're excited to go to work, to go to your job, to go to your creation of whatever that is for you, then the 21-Day Challenge is a program that can ignite your self-belief, your passion, so you can succeed like never before. What we'll do is we'll get clear on your purpose. We'll be able to break it down into bite-sized steps so that you have a daily task list and daily plan of action to succeed. And over 21 days, I'll hold you accountable. We'll have daily progress check-ins. You'll dial in your morning and your nighttime routines, and we'll do weekly deep dive calls to make sure that you're uncovering the self-sabotaging, limiting beliefs that might have been keeping you stuck or stopped or standing in your own way. So how you join the 21-Day Challenge today is send me an email and a message, chris@beyourgps.com, or find me on Facebook and let me know you're ready for your 21-Day Challenge and to reignite your life. Looking forward to having you in your next 21-Day Challenge. Next up is our iTunes review of the week. And that is by a great podcast. And a great podcast says, powerful, practical, and authentic. I met Chris at a live event and knew he had a knack for attracting great people to his show because he is authentic and high energy himself. That's the kind of people he invites to his show. The result is some of the best practical applicable advice you can get from people who have done the work themselves and can share what they've learned to shorten the learning curve for yourself. This is a great podcast. I really love the episode with Lyra Kay because I could so relate to the kinds of mistakes coaches make in building their business. So thanks so much, a great podcast. And if you want to give us a review, go to beyourgps.com/iTunes or search Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self on the iTunes store, and you can find us there and give us a review, or search Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self on Facebook, and you can give us a review there. Thank you in advance for doing that. We appreciate your feedback and letting us know what we're doing really well and what we can use improvement on. We love that. We love that constructive criticism. So, Mary Ann Robbat, she's about to come on and rock the house. Make sure you stay tuned because she's going to be here for the next hour, giving you the gold, helping you dive into your greatness and really becoming your greatest possible self. So make sure you have a pen and paper, something handy to take notes with, because these are the secrets. This is the gold that you have been looking for. So make sure you stay tuned all the way through. Mary Ann is a master energy healer, intuitive life coach, and founder of the Center for Lifelong Happiness and the Journey of the Healer School. Mary Ann has been transforming lives for more than 20 years by precisely identifying the limiting beliefs and emotionally charged issues that block clients from the joyful, abundant life they deserve. Mary Ann easily connects spiritual and energy practices to real-world living in her innovative programs, which guide individuals to heal themselves and embrace their natural-born healing gifts to become powerful healers with thriving healing practices. She's doing amazing things. She's the mother of triplets, a wife, and a published author, and her passion for skiing, hiking, spending time outdoors, and breaking through paradigms and working with her hands are just a few of the things that she really loves to do. And we're so blessed to have her here with us today. And Mary Ann, are you ready to rock the house, superstar?
I am. I'm so excited. I couldn't wait for this.
Awesome. You are now live on Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self. Thanks so much for taking time out of your schedule to come join us and share with our audience how we can step into our greatness with your wisdom, your experience, and your mastery that you've created. You are a very accomplished woman. You have an entire school that you've built to really help people step into their greatness. So thank you for sharing your time with us here today. We appreciate you.
Oh, well, you're so welcome. Chris, what I love is what you're doing out in the world. So I was thrilled to be part of that.
Thanks, Mary Ann. Appreciate you. So we're going to dive right into the theme of the day, which is facing your fears. So Mary Ann, how does this concept of facing your fears, how has that showed up in your life, and what does it mean for you?
So what it means for me is that our fears are actually really opportunities in disguise. And in fact, sometimes when I feel like I'm in a place of fear, like I'm doing something for the very first time, it could be a podcast, or it could be opening a school or writing a book. And what happens is you fear comes in and it stalls you out.
Yeah.
Like suddenly you're finding 9 million things to do rather than do your final review of your book, or you have all technical issues and so you're not doing your podcast. I mean, that's how fear, I think, shows up in our lives. And the interesting thing is that when we're in fear, we co-create with the universe these places where we can get stuck,
Wow.
because fear keeps us in a stuck place.
Mm.
And so, one of my belief systems that I really had to change is to step into fear as an opportunity,
Mm.
as a way of seeing it as an adventure, a
Ooh.
journey, that sometimes you won't know the end result, but you'll learn along the way. And I say this because in 2000, after I had my triplets, I was in the corporate world for about 18 years.
Wow.
Loved it, loved the work I was doing. Went back to it, but kept getting called to do this healing work or the coaching work. And so I took a leap of faith. I mean, we now had 3 little babies, and I decided to jump out of my very successful career and start this sort of healing business that at that time, this was over 18 years ago, I didn't even have language for it. All I knew was that these things were flowing through me, and when I applied them to people, they were making these massive shifts in their life.
Wow.
And so that would be like a moment of fear where I had to sort of suspend my beliefs, look at it as, okay, I'm going on this adventure, just like a hiking adventure, a ski adventure. I don't know where I'm going to land with this, but I'm going to just take action every day.
Wow, so powerful. I love that. Such a powerful paradigm and a mindset to step into, that they're adventures. Fear is an opportunity. We never know where it's going to get us, or we might not know. Sometimes we might know, but I would say most times we don't know what's going to be on the other side of that, what's going to open up. And when we see it as an opportunity, when we see how can we be in wonder about this? How can we see it as an adventure, as an exploration, as some new possibility that is exciting and fun and full of joy? It can really transform how we look at things, which is really the ultimate determinant of life. How do we see things? How do we relate to things? How do we, receive them in our mind and process them? And if we see something as an opportunity, it's a lot lighter. It's a lot more empowering and uplifting. And you had a perfect example of that when you jumped into your new career. You're like, I can either see this as, really difficult and I don't know, and it's frustrating. And I'm sure there were those moments. And you can say, like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
there were those moments.
And you got the ability to train yourself in seeing the opportunity in spite of the initial resistance and in the initial program. Because I think a lot of people are programmed to see the fear as something that blocks them, that stops them, that can't keep them moving forward. So I really love the opportunity perspective with this. So Marianne, for people who are just now getting connected with you, why don't you share a little bit more about yourself and the work that you do? I mentioned you have a school, but what do your clients come to you for? And just share a little bit more about yourself.
So one of the things that, so I'm on the East Coast, if you haven't put that together yet with my accent. And when I started to do a lot of energy work, it really didn't exist on the East Coast. Like I went to the West Coast to find teachers. I went to Peru to find teachers. The word energy just didn't even resonate here. People would think you were talking about the electrical company.
Right.
And so that's where I entered into this work. And so I do hold it as a journey. So my journey was twofold. In the beginning, it was a very lonely journey because nobody understood what the work was, and I didn't really understand what the work was. But the work was really about opening up myself to come back to me, to come back to those innate gifts that I had that I closed down because I was fearful of when I was in my teens, because I had no one to help frame. So what's intuition like? How did I know these things were going to happen to people? And, I use this example all the time. I never got the point of hide and seek because I could see where people were hiding. So I thought everyone else could see where people were hiding, but they couldn't. And when I started to realize, oh, not everyone else thinks this way or sees this way or has a knowing this way, I started to become more and more careful about how much of it I brought forward or not. Well, fast forward, when I was right after my kids were born, I swear this was the universe's way of getting me to switch careers. Because having 3 babies, I didn't want to be on the road all the time. I didn't want to be at work for hours in a day. And so I thought, all right, I will start this healing business. One of the cool things I find is that once we set our intention to something, everything else opens up for us. So once I set my intention to, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm going to go after this healing business. And I would have people refer me all the time. And I would say to them, I just get these messages in my head on what to do for you. And if you trust me, I'll do them. And all I could tell you is at the end, you'll feel so much greater. And so people were very trusting souls. I myself probably wasn't as trusting as they were. I was always asking my spiritual guides, give me proof, give me proof.
Right.
But they would come and they'd say, okay. And I would do whatever sort of got channeled through me for them.
Yeah.
What started to occur was this massive change in people, and people in their lives started to notice this change. So they started to come. And before you knew it, I had a business, and the business was a mix of coaching and healing. And then people started to ask, well, I want to do what you do. How do you do that? And I always say, when spirit asks you, if you have a question put in front of you 3 times in a week, it's spirit really telling you to step into that question.
Totally.
So on a Monday, one client asked me, and it took me like 25 minutes to explain all the different courses I took all over the place. And on a Wednesday, some other client asked the question, and this time it took me about 10 minutes to answer. On the Friday, I thought, when I got the question, I just need to open a school. So that's when my first healing school came through.
Wow.
And that was all designed around shamanism. It was, it taught the rituals and the techniques of shamanism. But along the way, I had that school for about 7 or 8 years. And what I was finding was there's a lot of ritual in shamanism, which I love. And for people that love ritual, that's great. But what was just dropping into me from spirit was so much easier and elegant and fast, and it would shift people so much quicker. So I think in my 8th year, just as shamanism was exploding on the East Coast,
Right.
I closed my shaman school. We were getting so many calls in, and I'm like, sorry, I'm closed. And this has always been my path. I think I would call myself one of those forerunners. Like, you're there to start something, and then when everyone else arrives, you move on. And so I closed my school, but my clients didn't go away. They're like, nope, like, we want to stay around. So I said, okay, I'll run this school called School of Source. And all that is, it's a 2-day school. We meet 5 times a week. And literally, I channel everything in that school. I might channel exercises we do, the energy healing work that we do. I walk in with no agenda.
Wow.
And some people, this is not for them. But some people who love, like, the divine knows so much more than we ever could. And if we just put our trust in it, miracles usually happen by the end of 48 hours. Like, people are shifting and changing or going for things that they might not normally go for. So I had School of Source for about 4 years, but in that school, they were also teaching me energetically how to heal people differently. And so about 2 years ago, I realized, oh my God, I have this whole framework now of how to heal people on the spiritual level, on the emotional level, on the physical level. I really need to bring that out so that more healers can have a whole system or a methodology in which they can help somebody from beginning to end. And so that's how Journey of the Healer School started.
Wow.
And I do call it a journey because I love to live from flow, and I love to live from source. And so there will be moments when we're in class where whatever I had prepared, I get something else totally. And I always tell my students, like, beware, because this is brilliance coming through. Like, what's coming through now is at a whole. So it's been an amazing journey to watch all these people that have had healing practices but not successful, and that like pains
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
when I see people going after what their purpose is and their gifts, and yet they're not successful at it. So this kind of program teaches you from soup to nuts how to have an amazing healing business that people keep referring you to others.
Wow. So amazing. So you've started 3 different schools, right?
Three
Like
different
three
schools. Two
at
is still in existence. I still run School of Source because
wow.
that literally is pure energy that flows through from me to whoever's in front of whoever's in that community. And then the journey of the Healer School.
Man, so amazing. I did want to ask, like, what were some of the challenges that you faced along the journey of starting these different schools? I think you mentioned a couple things, and like, what were some of the biggest wisdoms or learning lessons that you picked up along the way that helped you become the woman who's in front of us now?
Yeah, so I think my number one challenge was that I had to change my belief system.
Mm,
And I had to create a level of trust that is not in my nature. Like by nature, I was a business person. I used to question everything. And
mm,
when you are just channeling or getting information and handing it over, I really had to create a level of trust in my spiritual guides and who I was channeling, that this information was really relevant and would really heal this person.
wow.
And I have to say, to be honest, at first I would give them all these little tests, like, well, show me how it's going to be,
Yeah.
how it's
Yeah.
going to help this person. But I was talking to my husband because I was interviewed a few years ago, and they were asking me, what's the number one thing that you had to change in your life?
Mm,
And I said to him, God, I just don't know. And he said, oh my God, your whole belief system changed.
mm,
So, in a belief system, we create our belief systems based on our experiences, based on our family culture, based on our values.
mhm.
And when I went on this journey, like my family had no clue what I was doing. And so they felt like, oh my God, is she going into a cult? What is this? You know, there's all these things that start to come up, and like, why is she talking about energy? And what do you mean she's channeling these people? Are they going to take over her body? Because they would come to a few sessions where I was channeling. And they were like, oh my God, that really isn't her, but where is she? And it would evoke a lot of fear.
Mhm.
And so I think in order to really go on your journey, whatever that may be, and I'm sure, Chris, you had to do this too, is that you really have to look at what are your limiting beliefs
Mm,
and how do you release them? And what beliefs can you create for yourself that are empowering? So,
yeah.
one of my beliefs is any information that I get is going to heal somebody. Like,
Wow.
that's how I hold the intuitive knowing or the information I get from the spiritual.
Mm. That's powerful. So the big thing that you saw was the challenge is just the constant process of belief system upgrading, right? And
Exactly.
replacing it with more holistic, more empowering, more, for the good of all, so to speak, beliefs for yourself that you operate out of and you see the world through. And you also had to be able to communicate that with other people as well along the process, and develop a mastery of communicating those shifts that you've made. Because it's one thing to say, hey, I've changed these beliefs and this is who I am now. And it's another thing to empower people with that same shift and transformation.
And that's the work I love to do.
Yeah.
That is my sweet spot. I love to take people where they are, like meet them where they are,
Mm,
in whatever sort of place they're in, and say, well, what's your biggest vision for yourself? What is the possibility you want to live into?
mm,
And then explore what is that's blocking them. And not only, so one of the things that you need to know is that not only beliefs are like a mindset thing, but every belief that we own has energy behind it.
mm,
So if it's a belief that we took on early in life, it's going to have a lot of energy to it. So even though you might affirm for yourself this new belief and you say 21 days and you're like, okay, at the end of 21 days, I should own this, and you still don't. It's usually because there's energy within your system
yeah.
that says this is not true. And
Wow.
so you have to take the energy out and restore energy that's aligned to your new belief. And that's how people make shifts so much faster. That's what I noticed. Like I told you, I always had this coaching part of my business and then the healing part. And then sometimes I would cross over. I'd have people that came to both. But what I really noticed was that the people that were doing the coaching and the healing, their acceleration was so much faster than the people that I was just straight coaching. And so that's when the sort of light bulb went off that said, wow, everything has energy attached to it. And then it's not enough just to try to will yourself to this new way of being, that you really have to excavate the energy of the old so that you can create something new.
Wow. So powerful. I love it. I love it, Marianne. This is so amazing. I know our audience is loving this because they're all big visionaries, people who want to accomplish big things in their life, and they get stuck sometimes. They wonder, why am I not able to achieve this? Like, I feel like I've been doing everything right. I feel like I've been doing all the affirmations and praying and meditating and, everything, and going to the seminars, buying the books, and they still find that they're feeling stuck. So this is that, it could be that missing ingredient, that, gold piece of wisdom that they've been missing, is that energy behind the belief. And good.
Yeah, well, I wanted to add on to that. You're absolutely right. And what happens is we have a lot of unconscious beliefs, if you will. Like I was working with someone, he's a CEO, he's started 4 companies now, and he's on to his 5th. And for some reason, the 5th one isn't going as well. And one of his belief systems that we excavated was that he felt he couldn't be more successful than his father because that would have been disrespectful. Now, if I ever asked him straight on, like, well, what's your belief about creating this 5th business, right? So what's so interesting is how we fell upon it was his father was a serial entrepreneur as well. And his father had created 5 businesses. So this guy was on his 5th, but he was only in his mid-40s.
Wow.
And so there was this sort of unconscious energy playing out that says, wait a minute, you got to stall this out. Like this has to be our last one here, because we don't want to be disrespectful to Dad, because Dad taught us everything. Now, in a million years, he would have never walked into my office and say, oh, I have a belief that
No.
I can't be more successful than my dad, right?
Nope.
In fact, he thought his belief was like, I want to be more successful than my dad.
Right.
But no, there was this subconscious belief that said this will be really disrespectful.
Wow.
And what was so fascinating, not only did we find that, but we found several more. But once we changed it up, he was able to fly again. Like
That's incredible.
He was incredibly successful, but didn't understand why this 5th business wasn't taking off. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible, Marianne. So how can we start excavating our own beliefs and things that might be keeping us stuck? Where do we begin with that process?
I love that question, Chris. So what I would say is the first thing to think about is, where do you feel stuck? So name wherever it is, whether it's in relationship, business, your big vision, your goal. I was working with an entrepreneur last night that said, my vision always felt too big for me. And so what we did was go after how does she hold herself? And she said, oh, everyone thinks I have so much confidence, but I don't. And I'm like, this is rocking my world as I'm listening to her, because I would have said, oh my God, this is probably one of the most confident people I know. You see? So we carry these things about ourselves that we sort of hide from others, but we believe them about ourselves. Like, so she's doing it. She's out there being confident, but she doesn't own that she's confident. So I would first start to look at, what is that big thing you're going after? And then where do you feel stuck? Is it in taking action? Is it in how you see yourself? And I always have people set and write down the top 10 things around how you see yourself. If someone to describe you, what would they say about you? And you'll be so interested to find out that most people really undervalue themselves. And so then when you see that, you start to realize like, oh, this is a worthiness issue, or this is a value issue. They have a skewed view of who they really are in the world. So then I would go to thinking about the messages you got as a child, because 80% of our beliefs are in our belief system by the time we're 7. 80%. So we have to go back and say, what were the messages I heard from mom? What were the messages I heard from dad? You know, if I had a big brother or a big sister, what did they say about me? And then to really look at what might I have owned in these messages. Like maybe you had a big brother that picked on you all the time and said, oh, you'll never make anything of yourself. Or like nobody will ever want to be your friend. And in the moment, it was like this passing thing. But somehow you as that child locked it in as your truth. Now that's what I would call a subconscious belief. So what you want to do is go back to those times and think about what was being said about you. And then also look at what were your family, like what were your family sayings? Like my mother always had the saying, like money doesn't grow on trees, right? And so she produced 6 workaholics that worked hard for their money, because money doesn't grow on trees, right? Like we all bought into that belief. Now, if we flip the belief, and I went with, and this was one of the spiritual guidances I got was, wait, well, that was just made up. Make up something new for yourself. So my belief was, wow, money's really easy to make. It just keeps flowing in. I don't even know where it all comes from. And sure enough, this was back a while ago, about 15 years ago, within 2 months, my business doubled, and I didn't even work any harder than I was. In fact, actually, I worked less.
Yeah.
Because one day I got popped in like, oh, do a group program. At that time, I was just doing one-on-ones. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll try a group. And suddenly you can work with 10 people in the place of an hour versus one by one by one.
So powerful.
So that's how I would say is a great place to start. And then what I would say is then you want to flip your belief. So if you find a limiting belief, you want to take it and just flip it and say, what would be the opposite? Like I just said, the money one, like money can hang from trees. All I have to do is gently pick it. Like you just flip it for yourself, that it becomes now an empowering belief that you could believe. And then the third piece is the energy piece. And this might be a little harder depending on how deep it is. But what I would do is, if you don't have any energy healers in your life, I would take your hand and run it down your body and say, where do I hold energy around the belief money doesn't grow on trees? And you just run it and trust your hand, because our body has innate wisdom in it. So you just want to trust your hand, and wherever it stops, like, okay, so mine's stopping right here. So now what I want to do is say, ooh, it's about my heart chakra. So, or if it stops lower, it would be around your power, like power in the world, or up here would be throat. So find where it stops. And here's the thing I say to people, even if you don't understand what you're doing, it's your intention that can clear some energy. And unless it's really deep, like you've heard this all your life, but if it's just like a light belief, you can just say, oh, I stopped here. So I'm just going to imagine myself pulling all the energy out that I don't need around that old belief. And as I'm pulling it, I'm imagining this wastebasket, an energetic wastebasket. So I just dump. And what will happen is your hand will know when you want to stop. Like it will just know when it's kind of complete. And so when you're done, you blow up the energetic wastebasket, like you can imagine yourself sticking a tube of dynamite in. And then you fill it. So how you fill it is you imagine this powerful white light flowing through you, right into your heart chakra. And as you're filling that with new energy, you're saying over and over to yourself your new belief. I believe money grows on trees. I believe money just flows in so easily to me, you see? So that's a very tiny little process that you could use to help you shift a belief. First recognize it, then flip it, and then take the energy away from it.
Wow, that's so powerful. I love it. I love it. And you covered a lot of really great steps there. So the first one is to identify the belief, right? Identify the limiting belief, and it's to look back into our past, especially those younger years, those formative years when we're growing up, because that's when we're most impressionable, right? Like 0 to 7, you said, is when,
Oh God, that's how we take in everything, right?
yeah.
And can you imagine you're 3 years old and you're making a belief up, like, and then you're operating from that?
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
that's what
Wow.
happens then.
So for people who are wondering, they're going through this process. They take the time to identify, hey, what was some of the things that were told to me? What came up in my family and my culture? How do they know if it's just a conversation or a passing thought or like a deeply held belief? How would they know the difference?
They will see evidence of it in their life.
Mm,
They'll see evidence of it in their life. That's how
mm,
they'll know. Like, I had a woman once who could not, she'd always get into relationships for 6 months, 6 months, 6 months, but she was
mhm,
really at this point in her late 30s and wanted to get married. And she did all this work. She came to me, she worked with some other people. Nothing was changing. She goes, I can make it about 6 months and then the relationship just fizzles out. And so I tracked back, and her belief happened in the womb. I asked her, I said, so what does your mother believe about men? And she said, they're no good. They're good for nothing. You can't trust them, and something else. And I'm like, okay. So let's find out when you took on that energy. And she
mm.
actually took it on when she was in her mother's womb.
Wow.
But most people usually, they'll hear those messages over and over again in their life. So they take them on pretty early.
Wow, that's so
Yeah.
powerful. Thank you. Thank you for that distinction as well. So we get this negative belief, we have to flip it to the opposite to find out what's the empowering belief that we want to change it to. And then in that process of changing it, then we can really look for the energy, locate the energy in our body, and go through a process of draining and releasing that negative energy and then replacing it with the positive belief and the white light energy to restore what was, it's like a vacuum that gets created when we empty it out. So we have to be intentional about what we put back into it.
Yes, and you used a great word, intentionality.
Mm,
A lot of energy work, a lot of shifting is because of intentionality. When
wow.
you align your intention to a new way of you wanting to be in the world,
Mm,
then you're actually bringing energy into your life in that way. And our energy field is out in front of us. So
mm,
this is another thing people don't realize is that our energy is way out in front of us. They meet the people we need to meet before we physically meet the people we need to meet.
right.
And so what you want to do is become a master of your energy field because it's like your best friend. It's out there setting up things. Like you could think of your
Wow.
energy field as the best networker you will ever have.
Wow.
And so when I know I just came up with that, but I like it, so I'll have to reuse it.
That's
Um,
awesome.
what you want to do is think about what is it that I want to do? Or who is it that I need to meet? Or when do I need to get something accomplished? And what you do is then set your intention every day with this, or you could do it every day, or you could do the big picture. It does not matter.
Mm-hmm.
Like right now, I'm going through a launch for my next Journey of the Healer School. So I set my intention like a month ago, like, okay, I'm opening the doors for Journey of the Healer. Anyone that needs to be in there will find me. I don't know how they're going to find me. I don't even know how they're going to connect with me. But I believe that by sending that energy out, my energy field is a networker. So it's
Wow.
already sort of going through the system looking for people that
Right.
could really benefit from the work I do. And then they bring them forward. We meet in the energy, so we attract each other first in the energy.
Hmm.
Does
Yeah,
that
this
make
is.
sense?
Yeah, it totally does. It reminds me of visualizing our day. If we want to visualize our day going successfully, either the night before or the morning of, I think the night before is even more powerful because our subconscious mind goes to work on it, so to speak, overnight, and
Yeah.
we definitely do send out that energy, right, the night before, and that connects us with people like before we can even have a decision to like do it the next day, and like, hey, what actions am I going to take today? Oh, like that energy was already going to work for us. So I think it's like such a powerful principle, and it's totally in alignment with a lot of the personal development things that we're already doing. And I love that we're getting into another dimension of, it's not just, hey, your subconscious mind of, this operating thing that is like 3D, but it's like the energetics of it as well, because our thoughts and our energy goes far beyond, just what we can think of or perceive. And it's like so much far reaching than that.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's
Exactly. I
super
love
powerful.
that.
I love it. I love it. So, really mastering our energy, being like partnered with it. What else can you tell us about that? Because I think that's a really powerful distinction, to be partners with our energy, to harmonize with it, to really understand it, to acknowledge it, to celebrate it, to tap into its power and potential. What else can you share with us about that?
Well, I'll give you a tip that
Okay.
really helps people, especially if you're entrepreneurs, which it sounds like a lot of your audience is.
Yes.
Because as entrepreneurs, right, we're either solopreneurs or we have a little staff, but there's always a million and one things to do.
Right.
So when you said, the night before, visualize what you want to come forward the next day, that's awesome. One of the things I used to do a lot was in business, I would be invited to 2 or 3 different meetings at the same time, and I couldn't ever go to all of them.
Right.
But I would send my energy into the room and say,
Mm.
here are the 2 or 3 things I wanted to have as a takeaway from that meeting.
Wow.
And it would one time, so, and I would do that constantly. And so people would, I have this woman that works for me, and she goes, oh my God, she worked for me in business. And she goes, I never could figure out when people would say, well, Marianne said this, and you're not even in the room, and they would like be playing what you would say. I could not figure that out until
What?
I shared with
That's
her. She was in the healing school one time, and I was sharing how you use this to
yeah.
again master energy to work for you.
Mm.
So, for instance, if you're going for a loan or you're going for a new client, one of the things I always do, and it's so helpful, is to figure out how many clients, how much business do you need? Do you need in a day? Do you need in a week? Do you need in a quarter? Do you need in the month? Do you need in the year? So I would start with the big picture. Like, I need, I'll just throw it in them. I need $1 million this year.
Mm.
And so what I would do is to visualize $1 million coming into me. And again, you don't care where it's coming from, because if we ever try to just use our mind to figure it all out, we can't. We miss all these opportunities, right?
Well, there's like a trust too. There's a trust and a surrender, and not trying to control everything, and just saying, I know it's happening in divine perfect timing, and everything's lining up exactly the way it should. And that just, there's so much more peace and joy and fulfillment in that.
Right. And you're so right there, Chris. And also it allows you to be more present in your day,
Yes.
because your
Yes.
head's not worried about, oh, what are the 20 other actions I should be doing?
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. And then I would, at the beginning of every month, say, okay, this month, bring in the 200K. Okay, this week, bring in the 50K, whatever it is. Okay, this day, bring in the 10K.
Yeah.
And what that does is it keeps you aligned with the energy that you put out at the beginning of the year, the month.
Mm.
And it's basically telling your guides, you're serious about this.
Yeah.
Like, we put our attention on is what we co-create in the world. And what I see a lot of entrepreneurs do is they put their attention on their fear and what's not working,
Mm.
rather than what is working and what's possible.
Is there a simple fix or shift to not do that anymore?
Yes, a very simple shift is, I call it some mirror work. You could
Okay.
stand in front of the mirror every day and you say to yourself, what are 3 things I loved about my day today?
Mm.
And then what are 3 things that really worked within my business today?
Wow.
And then you just be grateful. And what that does, and why you stand in front of the mirror, because a lot of people say, well, I do that in my head. Yeah, but your mind knows how to control everything.
Totally.
But when you stand in front of the mirror, what's happening is the reflection of you is what your eyes perceiving. And so you're taking in the information in a different way. You're perceiving yourself standing there saying, I loved these three things in my life. And I loved these three accomplishments, right? So now the perception of you is as a success rather than a struggling entrepreneur.
Wow.
And if you give yourself that picture of you every day over and over again, your mind begins to align to that energy of I'm a success, and almost anything I touch, I'm successful at. You see?
Powerful, powerful, and I love it. I've noticed, like I say things that I'm proud of myself for, and I forgive myself for, and I like make promises to myself in the mirror, and I find that that is so empowering because anything that we say in front of the mirror, it's like if it didn't feel true before because like we had doubts or fears or whatever it might be, that stuff comes up and we have to like work through it. We have to, it's kind of like we integrate the truth of it, because the more we stand in front of the mirror and say, I'm committed to this, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, then the more we trust ourselves and the more we see ourselves taking action and being disciplined with our word, our commitment, and what we want, our intention, being disciplined with your intention and setting that's like our body and our mind and our soul and all of it learning to trust us and learning to be integrated. And then we get to look at ourselves, which I think a lot of people look at themselves and there's a source of, dissatisfaction or dis-ease or unhappiness that brings to them. When people just look at themselves, they just don't like looking at themselves. A lot of people don't, they don't have that self-image that is healthy and uplifting. And so I think it's really cool that we can shift that by simply looking at ourselves in the mirror and creating a new reality.
Yes, and that's so important. And actually, when you're in the mirror, if you start to like not believe what you're saying, you could do that same exercise around scan where the energy is. What's the belief I'm carrying about myself that's not allowing me to believe what I'm saying to myself?
Wow, that's incredible. Oh my gosh. I love it, Marianne. So being able to master our energy is so essential to really achieving our greatness and achieving our success. What else would you say is a big thing that entrepreneurs especially need to know on their journey of building their business and making a big impact? What have you seen be, blocks for them to share their message and to really help people and impact the world in big ways?
I think the number one thing is they have to be incredibly passionate about it. They have to have, it's almost like your business, whatever it is, becomes your calling.
Yeah.
Because it's hard, right? Like you have your own business, it's hard some days to
Totally.
keep showing up and getting up. And like today, I play tennis every day and I'm on the tennis court and my phone is beeping away, right? Like one message after another. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I shut it off. And someone said, who is that? And I said, oh, that's my leash. And it was my teammates, like the people that support me, who I love. But
Right.
some days you just feel like, oh, I'm never that far away from it. But so what I would say to people when that happens is that you really have to find what your passion is about the work you're doing. Don't do it because you think you should or you can, or even if you can help others, if you're not passionate about it, do something else because it becomes a hard day.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is that it's around balance. So
Yeah.
you really need to, like, one of the things I see so often with entrepreneurs is they work so hard. They work 12, 14 hours a day, or they have a day job and then they're working into the night and they burn themselves out before they ever get the success that they want. So it's around finding the balance. It's around saying, oh, okay, like I had this as my target, but it's too much. I can't do all this. So I'm going to give myself grace and do this. And so you rescope your target. And the reason why it's important to rescope your target is so that you don't feel like you're a failure. Because the moment you feel like you're a failure, you're going to invite failure in.
Yeah.
The moment you say, oh, okay, I scoped it wrong, let me just rescope it, it becomes an exercise in what you can contain in the moment.
Yeah.
And that's the other point I want to make is like your container as an entrepreneur, right? Like your container has to be big. And so you have to do things that really truly feed you. Like I play tennis every day. Is it the most convenient thing? No, but I wouldn't give it up because it brings me such fun and joy in my day. And I love to connect with people from that place. I don't like to go after work and feel like it's an obligation or a responsibility.
Yeah, and I hear that trusting the process is a big part because so much can happen for us simply in the energetic level, and having that grace and that ease and that surrender to the process, and like giving away the need to constantly be hustling, the need to do everything ourselves, like we were talking about earlier. Our mind, the human mind, is at least like the efforting part, the conscious, logical part, can
Yeah.
only compute and do so much, and our energy and our subconscious mind and those different layers can accomplish so much more than we can. So if we simply tap into that, into the trusting, into the knowing, into the reprogramming our beliefs, so that we can allow these things to just like fall into our lap and make it easy, make it fun, make it enjoyable, and focus on those things, then I think that's more what life is about anyways. It's like the work is going to happen. Like we're going to be working. We're conditioned, I would say, as human beings now through education and society to work really hard. That's not something that we have to, effort for. We have to, I think, unlearn the belief that we have to struggle to be able to have what we want. And we can create it that it's easy. We can create it that it's fun and joyful and playful, and that everything flows into my life from places I don't even know. And it's always happening, whether I like it or not, whether I believe it or not, it's always happening. I think it's really, really cool place to stand in.
Absolutely. Also, one of the things you said is there's a lot of outside noise for entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a
Yeah.
lot of people that have opinions on how you should do your business or what you should do or where you should go, or and when you're feeling insecure a little bit, it's easy to like you almost become like the ping pong ball. This person thinks that person thinks that. Let me go over here and try that. And I remember like when I was closing down my shaman school, I came home to my husband and I said, today I got 18 calls just in one day to have people come into my school. And I'm on the phone saying, oh no, I don't run that anymore. You need to go look up this person or that person.
Right.
And then I came home and I'm like, is it stupid? Am I crazy to close down the school when it's just booming over here in the East? And this is that moment of truth where you have to go back and reevaluate what are you in it for and what's going to feed your soul. And I thought to myself, well, I could run it. And yes, I could make a lot of money now that everyone else has caught up to it. But is that going to feed my soul? Am I going to feel happy for the next year doing something that I've already done for the last 8 years? And to those two answers, it was no, no. And so then I made my decision, and I had to purposely close down the noise because even in my own company, people were like, "Is that crazy? Shouldn't we just run one more?" And like the self-doubt could become huge, and that could
Yeah.
be what stops us from moving forward.
Yeah.
So you have to go, and we use that word trust a lot, but evaluate what it's going to do for you. Does it keep you on purpose? Are you excited about it? Can you mobilize all your energy behind it? Do you wake up because you're excited about your day, or is it just a chore? Like that's what I decided not to do the healing school because it felt like a chore. It was like, oh, I have to teach what I've done in the past for another year. When over here was all the cool stuff, and I wanted to
Yeah.
get to the cool stuff.
Yeah.
Mm.
So powerful. I love it. Marianne, this has been super, super powerful and helpful for everyone who's tuning in. And if we could move into the final piece of wisdom that you feel our entrepreneurs and high achievers and people who are becoming their greatest possible self need to hear from their time and their energy that they're investing into this interview with us, and specifically learning about you and your journey and your unique gifts, what would you say that one piece of wisdom is that you want to give to them?
The highest piece of wisdom. um, I think that when we are connected with our work from our heart, not our head, more possibilities can happen. Because when spirit comes through our heart chakra, the work of guides come through our heart chakra. It does not come through the head chakra. So when you can feel into your work, and I know a lot of people are analyzers and they don't feel. So for you, the question would be, what excites you the most about your work? And for those that are not analyzers, it go to the, when you feel into your work, do you feel excited? Do you feel motivated? Do you feel like whatever is in front of you can climb because you so believe in what you're doing? And then I would say, a lot of times you have to let go of the results and keep moving forward, because sometimes people base themselves on the results, not on the progress they're making. And I think in entrepreneurship, a lot of people quit early because they give themselves these goals, and when they don't make them, they say, okay, it's all over. Rather than do that reevaluation, like, oh, maybe that goal was too high I came up with. Like, so let's keep taking the steps.
Wow, that's so awesome. And trust your heart. Like that's been so huge for me, because I'm a very cerebral thinker, and like, always overanalyzing. I used to at least. And I've been learning to trust my heart and tap into that. And like literally I just put my hands over my heart and take some deep breaths. And if I feel like I'm in my head too much, if I'm having a conversation, I don't feel like I'm being with someone, I just like take a second and take some deep breaths. So for anyone listening, if you want like some instant kind of tapping into your heart practice, that's what I've done. That's really helped me and helped me guide myself. So that could be something that someone does at the beginning of their day. Breathe into your heart, put your hands over your heart, and just feel it and say, what do I intend for today? What do I want to create for today? What do I want to trust is going to happen for today? So I find that like literally sending energy into my heart with my hands is a really powerful way to fuel that part of me.
Absolutely. Could I add one more thing?
Yes.
Off of this conversation?
Yeah.
When our minds analyze so much because it's about safety, our mind is trained. Its sole job is to keep us safe in the world. It really is. And so every decision, every self-analysis is really at the core of it, like, will you be safe in this? Will this keep us safe? Will we survive this, right? Because that's our human brain is all around helping us to survive in the world. If we begin to tell ourselves every day, like maybe when you're breathing in through your heart chakra, I'm safe and secure in the world. I have spiritual guides, I'm being watched, I'm being supported, whatever those messages are you need to feed to yourself. If you can feed them, it quiets down the mind and the analyzer as well. So I love that combo together.
That's powerful. That's powerful, Marianne. Thank you so much. And our audience definitely wants to know, with all this wisdom and really practical stuff you've shared with us so far, they want to know how they can stay connected with you and continue their journey with you. So how do they do that?
Probably the easiest way is to go to the Center for Lifelong Happiness.com, centerforlifelonghappiness.com. There's an opt-in page. You'll see some of the programs we offer. And if you want to have a 20-minute laser call to connect with me, I'm happy to do that too. There's a button or a click on there that you can set up a call to talk to me. So I'm happy to do that. And we renamed our business Center for Lifelong Happiness based on a survey we did of all our clients. And basically every survey said the work that they did with me created a happier, healthier life for them.
Wow. That's so amazing. Gosh, Marianne, you are a rock star, and everyone who's listening or watching, definitely go to centerforlifelonghappiness.com. Schedule a call with Marianne. She will change your life, and this conversation has been so empowering and uplifting. I can only imagine what working with you one-on-one can really provide for anyone who does that. So I highly recommend it. And Marianne, thank you so much for coming on. You're a superstar, and keep up the amazing creation and empowering people to be their greatest possible self, okay?
I will. And thank you, Chris. And I love the work you're doing in the world. So keep on keeping on, right?
Awesome. Thanks, Marianne. We'll see you soon, okay?
Bye bye.
Bye.